Welcome back into Wake Up America. Time to get to our newest segment here on the show. Our new White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki reportedly tried to find out questions from reporters before her press briefings, which would be a break in protocol. Here is Psaki yesterday talking about Space Force in today's Psaki Dodge.
He asked whether the president has made a decision on keeping the scope of Space Force.
Wow, Space Force. It's the plane of today. It is an interesting question. I am happy to check with our Space Force point of contact. I'm not sure who that is. I will find out and see if we have any update on that. Go ahead.
It's just, there's some arrogance there. There's a little condescension as well. Space Force is an official branch of the U.S. military. So I hope that she knows who those people are or finds out. I want to welcome back in our panel to talk about this and a whole lot more this morning. Nan Hayworth, Chris Arps is with us, Mark Halpern, and Amir Benno. Chris, I mean, the Space Force, you know what the funny thing is, 100 years from now, the Space Force will be one of the important parts of our military. It was forward thinking from Donald Trump to finally make this official. And by the way, Russia and China are following with their own space forces. Your thoughts, though?
You know, and if I remember correctly, you know, people kind of ridiculed the idea of Space Force when President Trump first proposed it, but it seemed to have pretty wide bipartisan support by the time he signed it into law. I think with Psaki, whatever her name is, I think she, you know, I write for RedState.com, and right. I mentioned in an article last week that what we're seeing is the marriage of big tech, big government, and big media all into one. And with her purportedly asking for the questions before they're submitted to her is exhibit number one to me.
Nan, I can see you nodding your head there. It seems very bizarre for her to be this condescending.
And Rob, I agree. She behaves exactly like someone who knows that she's going to get an A in a social promotion no matter what she does. Right. And that is going to be her attitude, I am sure, throughout. And the press and the media, just as Chris said, you know, that big monolith of you know, the left-leaning supporters, they're all going to be behind her no matter what.
Alabama Congressman Mike Rogers, who's the top Republican on the House Armed Services Committee, so a very prominent member of the House, said that the press of the Space Force for what he called a disgraceful comment. So I get it, Mark Halpern, you've been in the room, and it's one of these situations where she's going to get high fives from people that are a part of the administration, but for 74 million Americans and a whole lot of people who saw that, it just seems just kind of tone deaf.
Yeah, you know, when she got the job, I thought it was a very smart pick because she's got as much experience as almost anybody could coming in. I hope she recalibrates answers like that and thinks about the nature of the job. It's not to entertain, it's to inform and to be a spokesperson, not just for the president, but for the country. So I hope she looks at that and recalibrates.
Mark, what do you think about her wanting questions before those briefings?
Well, I think it's more complicated, I think, than some of the stories have suggested. But again, it's an illustration, at least in part, of the clubbiness that exists always between Democratic White Houses and the press corps, which leans Democratic. And I think everybody involved should be on guard to do what's right for the public interest and not just part of what people in Chevy Chase and Bethesda think's the right thing to do.
Don't forget about Alexandria and Georgetown as well. Amir, abolishing Space Force, just the mechanics of that would require an act of Congress for that to actually happen, right?
Yes, it would. And I mean, I think it was created by an act of Congress. So if it could only be repealed that way as well.
All right, I wanted to talk about Jeff Bezos. He's now officially out as Amazon CEO. I don't think he's looking for work right now, but this was kind of a big deal yesterday. People were wondering why this is. He hasn't said why yet, but if you've got $200 billion, that's probably 200 billion reasons to put your feet up and relax. Nan?
Well, definitely. You know what? You're absolutely right. The pandemic has been very, very good to Jeff Bezos. And, you know, he's great credit to him. He built an amazing model for delivery of services and goods to the people of the United States and the world. But what I want to know from him is why, you know, he's the owner of the Washington Post. We know they have a certain editorial policy. He said he won't interfere in it, but he is obviously someone who has embraced capitalism with both arms, and hooray. But, why does he indulge the Washington Post? And why, when there was a union election in Alabama at an Amazon facility, did they oppose vote by mail because they said that it would not be secure? That's Amazon's position. Why is the Washington Post so much on the opposite side? Let's get some clarity here.
Yeah, it was weird, Amir, because he, now all of a sudden Amazon wants to help out with the vaccine distribution. They claim they made the same offer to the Trump administration, but they've been very vocal about their resources, their network, their grid, their trucks, to get vaccines out to the general public. I don't think the two are connected, but it seems bizarre that this guy wouldn't just sit back and relax and collect his billions in interest every second of every day.
Wait, you're saying that he doesn't really want to help with the distribution? I'm not quite clear on the question.
Amir, it's 7:19 a.m. right now, so we've been on the air for a little under an hour. If I'm doing the math right, he has made $12 million. No. Yes, $12 million since we've been on the air right now. So, I mean, this guy, he could just take his billions and sit as the, almost the king of the company until he is done.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. But obviously he's got his hands in a bunch of different pots, and Washington Post being one of them. Different philanthropic activities as well. And I think that this is probably as he said, it's a very singular focus, being the CEO of Amazon, a behemoth of a company. And I think he's just taking advantage of the opportunity to be able to spend some time and energy and focus on other things.
Mark, what do you make of all these executive orders coming from Joe Biden? They're calling him the executive order in chief right now. He's trying to undo President Trump's America First immigration agenda. It took him a long time to get several different issues accomplished. And now, again, via the pen, the stroke of a pen, 45 executive orders have been signed.
Well, look, I know people are concerned about the number that he signed and the nature of some of them, but I think the focus should be on the policy. Pretty much everything he signed is stuff he promised to do during the campaign. And I think we'd be better off as a country talking about what it is he's actually trying to do, whether these are good ideas or bad ideas, those who oppose him, what they can do about it, rather than just obsessing over the number. Because this is the nature of the presidency now. Every one of his predecessors has done this. It's just he's done more of it because of the times in which we live.
He's done more than anyone by far, though. It's Chris, jump in. But he's signing more executive orders than any of his predecessors combined through 14 days.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on Bezos.
Yeah.
Amazon has a near monopoly on commerce in this country. Amazon's done a great job, Jeff Bezos. I think he's going to spend more of his time in the political realm now that he has the company where he wants it. I think he's going to start some big PAC that's going to contribute to liberal causes, or I wouldn't be surprised if he throws his hat in the ring to run for office in a few years.
I know, look, that's an interesting point, Chris. So people have said that. So Tom Brady, he's 43 years old. He's going to play in the Super Bowl on Sunday, obviously. Eventually, he's going to have to hang him up, whether it's time or he gets injured or he just decides to retire at some point in the next few years. He's going to, Mark, he can play forever. He can play. He had 40 touchdown passes this year. He could.
He's Tom Brady.
Does Tom Brady get into politics? I want to run this around I've heard this sort of. Don't forget, he was at one of President George Bush's State of the Unions back, I believe it was 2005 or 6. But people have, he'd run in Massachusetts, he'd run in California, he'd run in Montana. I think he'd probably win too. Nan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Having been in the political arena as someone who did not come from a politically related profession as a doctor, sure, why not? And, look, we know Senator Tuberville in Alabama is a famous coach. Tom Brady has a lot of charisma, and he seems to have certain political leanings. I think he's more on the conservative/libertarian side. Why not?
Mark, who was it? Jack Kemp? Was that the former? Yeah, right? He ran. Only problem is in Massachusetts, I think Brady, Mark, would have to be, he'd be a Republican.
Well, Massachusetts elects Republican governors. They have one now, but I think the only two jobs in politics big enough
Charlie
for Tom
Baker's
Brady
not
are
a
Pope.
Republican.
That's what it's got an R after his name.
Yeah.
The only two jobs big enough for Tom Brady in politics are Pope or king of the planet for life.
Literally.
I don't think he wants to do either of those.
Yeah, I think he's just it's going to be interesting to see, but he's one of those
That
guys.
sounds
Much
like you're bidding for campaign manager, Mark.
Oh, Mark would
General
be a part of
consultant.
that. But I'll tell you what, he'd be like one of the Kennedys in Massachusetts if he ran. But I think he'd run as a Republican. We all remember he had that MAGA hat in his locker, and that was like a big to-do back in.
Tom Brady's $1 billion brand. I don't think, and he has seen what his friend Donald Trump has gone through the last 4 years. I don't think he wants to go down that route.
It's weird to say it, but I think he's bigger than being a congressman or even a U.S. senator. Panel, we got to leave it there. Good stuff. We'll see you guys again in just a little bit here on Wake Up America. I enjoy the conversation every time we have you on.